Hey, what's going on? Joe McCall again, Real Estate Investing Mastery Podcast. This is episode number 12. 12, however you do it on the video there, of the Deals Gone Bad series. And this has been very informative, educational. Everybody has a different story. And Ester is our guest today on this podcast. What could go wrong when you've got a probate deal with 7 siblings, right? Like what could possibly go wrong in a big deal like that? But Esther's also going to talk a little bit about their first, right after they started rehabbing, or after they started flipping and wholesaling, they did a rehab deal and lost a bunch of money on that. So we're going to be talking a little bit about 2 different deals that have gone bad with Ester. Now, if you remember, I have all the notes for these podcasts and the lessons learned and a lot of the links that we've been sharing and some bonuses and stuff like that. You can get the notes from this podcast at joemccall.com/bad or text the word bad to 313131 and we'll get you the mind map. Right now, all of the notes are in the mind map. And I almost deleted the mind map the last podcast, but I didn't. I recovered it and I just made a backup of it. So it's all good. But all of the notes and the stuff that we have been talking about are going to be put together for you. And I'm thinking about maybe turning it into a PDF or a resource or a book or something like that to give to you guys. But if you want your hands on this, highly, highly recommend it, because these lessons that we're learning through this series of Deals Gone Bad are very important for everybody to really pay a lot of attention to. Okay. So you can get it by texting the word bad to 313131 or go to joemccall.com/bad. All right. One more thing here. We are broadcasting this live as we speak on YouTube and Facebook. So if you're on YouTube and Facebook, say hello, tell us where you're from. If you got a question for us, type it in there and we'll be glad to answer your question. And if you're watching this later, please share it and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Some of you guys didn't even know I have a YouTube channel. Subscribe to the show. We release 2 to 3 episodes every single week and a lot of new content that is not even released as a podcast. Cool. I think we're ready to go. Ester has been on the show before. Hi, Ester. How are you?
Hey, Joe. Good. I'm doing good. How about you?
Awesome. We interviewed Ester back 5-6 months ago, episode 876. And you did 6 deals that month. And we interviewed you and just talked about what you've been doing. And, you know, this was a month you grossed about $32,000 in wholesale fees in the middle of the shutdown, which was awesome. How's business going for you, Ester?
Still booming. I mean, still booming. Very good.
Deals on the whiteboard in the back behind you.
Yeah. That's everything awesome. is. I'm chilling here. I'm chilling.
Right. So Ester, how long have you been doing deals now?
I've been doing deals for like close to 4 years now. Cool. And so, one of the deals, the very first deal was awesome. It was like, everybody's like, you know, we made money. It was great. It was working. We were like, okay, let's go ahead and, you know, we're starting looking for other deals. And so we ended up finding out, we didn't have any other leads. So we were running out of leads. So we were going ahead and we did that mistake, like you were talking about, you know, continuing to, look for leads and deals while you're doing whatever you're doing. So we stopped that. So we were scrambling and we started making offers on MLS and we finally found one and we got accepted. It was a HUD house. And I'm in the mentality, well, we had the wholesale deal, let's wholesale it again. But I had a partner that said, hey, let's have the experience of flipping it. And I'm like, I was like, oh, I don't know. So anyways, he was like, he convinced me and I was like, okay, let's go ahead and flip it. We got hard money loan and we didn't realize all the fees that, you know, hard money lenders have, you know, the points and everything. So we were like, okay, so this is really tight as far as money goes. So our partner at that time, he was saying, you know, Ester, he's got a transmission shop. So he was like, you know, I've got a client that comes in every time and he's into construction. Let's just get him to do the you know, contract him to do all the stuff that we need on the house. And we really don't need that much. I'm like, okay, let's do that. So mistake number 1 was didn't have a contract with that friend. So we were like, oh, it's a friend, he'll do it, no problems. and he started working on it, and it was my husband, myself, and my friend and his wife all telling this guy, hey, do this, fix that, and there was nothing planned. So basically, the money that we had put into it for just the repairs just went out the door like that.
Everybody's telling him different things to do, and he was doing it right, but he's secretly adding all of this stuff up. There's no scope of work.
No scope of work. There was no plan. I mean, we just knew, okay, the bathroom needs to be fixed, fix it. There was nothing like planned. Okay, you need to make sure you take the wall out, move the plumbing from this part to this part, and make it where, and the bathroom was all funky looking anyways, the way it was, actually the way they did it. But anyways, and so it was too many, what is that saying? It's too many chief and
chefs in the kitchen.
Yeah, something like that. And so it was something like that. So he had too many people telling him what to do. So he was getting all confused, and he didn't know who he would be listening to, who he should be listening to. So that was another mistake that we learned, that I learned, because everything was on me too, because I was the one looking for deals. I was looking for, dealing with the contractors, and I kept on going to the contractors, the house every day just to make sure that the guys were actually doing the work. And the other thing that I found out on that particular deal, at the end of the day, everybody had magically a beer in their hand. So they were drinking beer at the end of the day, at the end of the day. So I was like, I shut my mouth. I didn't say anything, but now I know, the legal ramifications on that stuff. So, I learned.
What are the legal ramifications of drinking beer?
They could be going home drunk, or they can be, if they handled another tool on my property, I could have gotten sued, or I have to, there's medical bills, and I have to handle that. So, I learned that was another thing that I had to learn.
So would you say, I just want to ask you more about that. Would you say don't let contractors drink on your job, on your property?
Right. It's a big no-no.
Wow, I never thought about that before.
That's right. So we were like, they were all Mexicans, and there's nothing wrong with Mexicans. It was just, they weren't with papers or anything like that. They were just doing the work to do the work and get paid. And at the end of the day, let's get the cerveza, the beer out, and let's drink something. So, and we let that go because it was a friend that was doing all the fixing and everything. So we, like I said, the stuff that I learned from that particular deal was A, contract, B, you got to have the contingencies there, have everything planned to every detailed, and then the other thing was that the contractor, because he got so frustrated with us, he left. The so-called friend left. So I ended up having to hire another contractor, but I did right with that one because I did have a contract with that one. And I did put in, okay, if you don't finish by this date, there's going to be a fine, or, so he understood. And then I told him you're not going to get paid until the very last day, until we did a walkthrough of the house, and any little detail we had to make sure, that was done. So we did learn on that particular one, but the realtor didn't do such a good job at putting it on the MLS and marketing it. And finally, I got the buyer for that property, and she got the credit for everything when I brought the buyer to the property.
So you were selling it with the realtor? Yeah,
I was selling it with the realtor, doing it like everybody else does. And I should have negotiated that with the realtor. So, if I brought the buyer, it should be not 6% to you. So.
Yeah, I'm writing this down.
So I learned quite a bit in that, and we lost like maybe 10,000. I would say about 10 to 13,000 in that property out of our own pockets.
Not including the lost deals, the opportunity cost, right? During that time, all that time you spent on that deal, you could have been spending finding other deals and wholesaling deals, sticking in your lane, right? Do you think you could have wholesaled that deal and made money on it?
Yes.
How much do you think you
Absolutely.
would have made if you wholesaled it?
I would have made maybe 15,000 on that property.
Okay. And how long would it have taken you to wholesale it?
I would say 3 weeks.
And how long did it take you to do this whole rehab and finally sell it?
4 months. I know.
How
4 months.
frustrating is that?
Very frustrating. Very frustrating because you could have done. You realize all the stuff that you could have done and that time wasted, and the fact that I kept on going back and forth, because I'm thinking if you're not there, they're not doing the work. So I had to go back and forth to the house just to make sure that they were working. So
now, since then, how many years ago was that?
That was 3 years ago.
Okay. Since then, have you done any other rehabs and fixed and flip properties?
No.
Okay, good. Now, some people, that is in their wheelhouse. They do make really good money wholesale. I'm not wholesaling, fixing and flipping properties. But like in your experience, maybe you don't have enough experience to talk about this. That's fine. But like, what advice would you give to somebody on when to wholesale it and when to rehab it?
Well, I mean, in that case, for me, and my advice would be if the numbers were so tight, wholesale it. Don't deal with it, just wholesale it. And then if it was very good pricing, because we were kind of tight on it, and we wanted to just experience, flipping. So, and
you wanted to experience adult daycare.
Yeah,
and see
exactly.
what that's like. Okay.
So yeah, you hit it right in the nose. So yeah, that's why I was saying, if the numbers are really good and you have a huge spread, then go for it. Do the flip. But again, have a contract with your contractor, have contingencies in place, and be very specific on what you want. And just have one chief, just have one person talking to the contractor.
That's so good.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize how big of a job rehabbing is. The TV shows make it look so easy.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many things that could go wrong. You've got way more money on the line. You've got way more risk, liability. I mean, you have to be worried about letting them drink on the job. Even when the job's done, you have liability if they're sitting on your property drinking and then they were to leave or have an accident with some of the tools there, or, get in an accident while they're driving away. And, they could find out that they were drinking on your job site, on your house, and you let them do it. Or worse yet, your company bought their beer for them or something like that. So yikes. Sometimes, they say it's better to make a fast nickel than a slow dime.
That is so true. That is so true. And I keep saying to myself, it's the same thing with, when I get an offer from somebody and and my husband says that, a bird in the hand is worth more than two in the bush. So I keep saying, okay, let's just, if for sure we have an offer, let's, go for that one and not just for maybe and hold off and so forth.
So, I sometimes wonder if it's always better to make a quick nickel than a slow dime. I think it depends. I know some guys that do really, really well making slow dimes, but man, there's so many things that can go wrong during that time you're making the slow dime. And here's the other thing I want you guys to think about. And Esther, I know you would probably agree with this. That same 3-4 months that you rehab that house, you could have wholesaled 10-12 deals during that time. With that time that you were spending on that deal, you could have wholesaled more deals and made a lot more money during that time as well. So this is why I'm such a big fan of fast cash strategies, wholesaling strategies, and because there's just so much less that can go wrong. And the cool thing is, if you would have bought this deal, you wouldn't have bought it if you wouldn't have been able to wholesale it, right?
Right.
Okay, cool. All right.
True. That's true. And not only that is the stress when I realized when I was doing the flip, the stress involved in that. I mean, oh my gosh, I was like, I don't know how these flippers do it all the time. I couldn't handle all that stress. So no, I don't want, I mean, if I do it, I would have to, again, hire somebody else to take care of that. And I just don't want to deal with that headache and stress. I mean, wholesaling is fun for me. It's fun. It's quick. You go on to the next one. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about a second deal that you had.
Mm-hmm.
This was a probate And there were 7 siblings involved.
Yeah. It was it was a mail out, we were doing postcards and they called me up saying, and it was a mail out to absentee owners. So
Okay.
they responded back and I spoke to them and created, one particular person, I was talking to her and she was like, yeah, we want to sell it. And, it's all of us. It's, it belonged to our parents. It's now empty. Nobody even lives there or in that city. They're all in different cities. So I was like, okay, cool. So she gave me permission to go to see the house. I saw the house. It's been sitting there for like 15 years. And she goes, okay, well, there's 7 of us, we all have to agree. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. I get it. And so we found out that I started talking to all the other individuals. We basically decided to do a Skype call. And so we had everybody there they're involved. And so everybody was saying yes, except for one person. She would not appear on Skype. She didn't want to be a part of Skype. So we were talking to her and over the phone and trying to convince her to get on it so we can all be in the same. She was like, she refused. So either way, and that day on the Skype call, everybody, all the 6 siblings decided, yes, let's do it. Let's sell it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to send you all guys an agreement. Since it is, somebody passed away, we need a, did you guys go to probate? Like, no. So, okay, we're going to have to do an affidavit of heirship. So basically the title company is going to send you guys affidavit of heirships. So we sent that out to the title company, yet we still needed that one other signature. So finally, we finally got a hold of her again and I spoke to her and she basically said, I'm going through bankruptcy, yada, yada, yada. And basically she was saying, I don't think I should be just receiving, because they were all going to be receiving like $5,000. And I don't think I should be receiving just $5,000. I'm having really bad hardships. So I think I should be getting $10,000. So the only way that we're going to do it is if we did it this way. So it was me and, because it was, I had a joint venture with somebody else for this particular property. And they were saying, no, she's being greedy. And she didn't want the other siblings to know about that she wanted the extra $5,000.
Oh, really? She didn't want anybody else to know.
That's the reason why she didn't want to go on Skype. She was like, everybody is fine. They're well off, but I'm having hardships and I want to be able to, I deserve to have $5,000 more. And I was like, screw that. You don't need that. I was like, I'm going to tell everybody else. And then I said, plus, if you wanted $5,000 more, it's going to show on the HUD that you're getting $5,000 more. And she goes, no, well, I would only sign if you and I have a contract saying that you give me $5,000 at the end of the assignment, the end of the closing. I'm like, I guess my pride or whatever. And I was like, no, screw it. You're not going to have that. No. And if I like try to be honest and transparent with everybody. And if I give you $5,000, it's going to come back somehow or other. It's going to come back. Somebody's going to know about it. And so I let it go, but it was a back and forth thing for like 3 months.
Wow.
And, saying that she would do it. At first she was saying, yes, she would do it with $1,000 more. And I'm like, talking to my partner, like, okay, it's $1,000. We'll get this deal done. After closing, we'll just give her $1,000 just to have her signature basically. And she was like, so we agreed on that. And then like 2 weeks later, the girl came back and said, that's when she came back and said, no, 5,000. And we were like, no, she keeps changing and changing and changing. So that's when we let it go. And it was going to be a good spread because we were going to make both of us, we were going to make 20,000 each.
Wow.
So, and our buyer was like, I want this property. Because he was going to make it into a duplex because it was huge. And so he was going to make it. So and he was fine with our $40,000 assignment fee. He was fine with that.
Wow.
But I was like, maybe I should have just let it go. But the fact that she was so money hungry like that, I was like, didn't want to deal with it. And it just went, everybody didn't, I told everybody, I said, basically she wanted more money. And that just created everybody screaming at each other and screaming at this particular person. And I was like, I like to be, again, transparent with everybody. I don't want any hiding, because it's all going to come back. And so that's what happened with that 7 probate.
So the deal fell apart.
It fell apart. It fell apart. So she would not sign it at all.
How long ago was this?
That was 2 years ago.
Do you know if they ever sold it, or what's going on with the deal?
Because I went like maybe a year ago just to pass by that house, and it's still vacant. Nothing's happening. And then just for the hell of it, I sent a message to one of the first person that called me up, and I said, "How are you doing? I'm just calling to see how you're doing, to see if everything is okay." And she goes, "No, everything was good, but we haven't sold the house." She still refuses to. She wants now everybody in her family to give her $1,000 each. So we left it at that. That's what happened with that probate.
Well, it's good for you though that you're willing to walk away from that. Looking back though, that was you could have made gross $40,000 assignment fee on that deal. Some people are saying, well, just give her the $5,000. What's the big deal? Do you still stand by your decision to walk away from the deal because of that?
Yeah, I do. Even though it's money on the table, it's money there, but I feel like something's going to come back, whether it's not on this particular deal, but karma, it's just going to come back somehow. And I don't believe that you should be sneaky that way, because it's going to come back. Like I said, maybe it's my pride. Maybe it's my pride, or maybe my values. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too prideful, but I decided at that moment, it's just, let it go. I just being greedy that way. And, that's my opinion.
This was a cash deal, so you don't have to worry as much about paying people outside of closing on a cash deal because a bank's not involved. But still, there's an element of you have to have full disclosure, and you can't be hiding things from other people in the transaction to a certain extent, right? Like, interesting. So the deal, are you still following up though? Do you still plan on?
Yeah, actually that one's still every 6 months. Maybe I should do it sooner than that, but every 6 months I'll go ahead and send her a message just to see how she was doing, just checking up on her. I know her son's name. I know, what they do for a living, and I know that they have some little issues. So I kind of, hey, did you get that resolved? And like, yeah, that's good. So we keep that little conversation, rapport going on. So she's very, so we're all in good terms, very, very good terms. It's just this lady decides not to do it. So that's that particular deal. But I do have another deal that I just remembered. It was a commercial deal. It was my very first commercial deal, and this guy called me up again from absentee owner list mailers, and this guy said he's got a plaza. It's a mechanic. It's got a place where they cut tiles, and it's got a strip joint. So it's a place where they strip. A girl strips in the nighttime. So he was like, I wanted 300 something thousand, and we were like, I got to find out what the rents are coming in and so forth. So I remember and he was very, very adamant that he wanted to sell it and so forth. And I told him, look, it's going to be like 201 is what I can offer you. And he said, after a day or two that I was speaking to him, he called me back and goes, okay, we'll take it. So I went ahead and got it under contract. I started giving it out to different investors. And this seller, every single day, I've never had a seller this way, calling me saying, hey, did you get a buyer for it? Did you get a buyer for it? I really need to sell. And I was like, okay, not yet. It's still in negotiations. We're still looking at it. A lot of people don't like the fact that it's a place that has, people are stripping. They really don't like that. So, anyways, every day he was constantly doing that. And I was getting a little irritated that he was calling me so many days, every single day like that. So, finally, I got a buyer that was basically saying, I can't do he was saying basically we're in negotiations, and he was saying like maybe 230 or 220 or something like that. So I would have been like making maybe $10,000 assignment fee. And so the seller figured out that I was putting it on the marketplace, looking at talking to other investors. Apparently he was doing the same thing. And I saw how much you were putting it out there. And I said, he goes, you're being greedy. Why are you putting it out there? Like, oh, this is all about negotiations. Nobody's going to be paying what you're asking for. It's always, give and take. And so he basically said, that I was being greedy and, not doing things right. And I was like, what is it? You said you wanted 201. That's exactly what you're getting. So I don't know where you're coming from. And the fact that it's got a strip joint there, a lot of people don't like that ethically. So anyways, I let that one go again, because that one was being money hungry. He was saying, again, he wanted to change the contract to the price that I was putting it out there. And I let that one go because, again, he was just, I've never had a seller, like I said, that was desperate. And that's something that a lot of people, when you start doing this, you start hearing, okay, it's a motivated seller, but it's a motivated seller for money, that's desperate for money. And that's not good.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So
you've got to be super careful.
Yeah.
And be willing to let it go.
Mm-hmm. And that's when I realized for that particular deal, I had to let that go, because that seller was money hungry. Not just, he's motivated to sell, but he was money hungry. And I didn't like that. I didn't like dealing with people like that.
One time I was advertising a rent-to-own home for a tenant buyer. And I found a really good tenant buyer, and she passed all of the pre-screening background checks and stuff that I did. I met her and her brother at a Panera or something like that. Turns out she was a stripper. And you would have never known by meeting her, but her brother told me this is how she makes her money. And I didn't give it to them. It didn't work out, but there's also something maybe with a business that is doing that kind of thing that may not be worth getting involved with. Just again, I don't like the word karma, but something like that kind of can come back at you in a bad way. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah. So I'm looking at some of the comments. Kenny says here, you did the right thing. She's a greedy pig. Talking about the probate deal.
Probate, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But Millie says, I would have given her the extra $5,000 to close the deal. But you got to remember, would that have been right for the other members of the family without them knowing that? And Ronald also says the same thing. So this is a judgment call, right? Mm-hmm. But I think you might be able to sleep better knowing that it would have been fine to give her the extra $5,000, but the rest of the family had to know. They should have known. And if they were okay with it, then yeah, maybe that would be a good thing to do.
Yeah, well, she had kids, and the one that wanted the $5,000 more had kids, and the fact that you get the extra $5,000, the kids are going to know that there's extra money. So I would assume, and so I was like, somehow or other, it's going to come back to the other brothers and sisters that she got more money. Yeah. So I was like, no, I don't want to deal with that, just in case.
Yeah. Good. All right, so let's talk about lessons learned real quick. I've written down some things. Don't ever stop your marketing. Always get leads. When you were working this rehab deal you talked about at the beginning, you kind of stopped your marketing, and that is the kiss of death in any real estate business, isn't it? If you stop your marketing, you're not getting new leads. You may close that deal, make some money, but you turn around and your pipeline's empty. Mm-hmm. And you can't, it's not like a switch that you can just turn on and leads start pouring in again. It takes a while to build that momentum, doesn't it? Getting those leads coming back in.
I like that saying that you're saying you want marketing done despite yourself.
Yeah, marketing done for you in spite of you.
In spite of you, yeah.
Cool. Mm-hmm. And somebody else here had a real good comment. Kenny said, I feel like if you had agreed to $5,000, then it would have been $7,500. Yeah. If you keep on agreeing, giving what she wants, she would have wanted more. And you're probably right.
I totally agree. Yeah. That was my gut feeling, because when she went from 1,000 to, she was leading to 4,000, but then all of a sudden she went 5. And I was like, no, I think she's going to end up going back more. Yeah. I agree.
Another lesson learned, you when you're doing rehab, you need to have one point person for the contractor. You've got to have a written scope of work. Everything needs to be in writing.
Yeah.
To the detail, to the you know what's but to the gnats, you know what. Okay. Be careful with scope creep. Scope creep is, like where the scope keeps on creeping up and up. And if you don't have one point person responsible for communicating with that contractor, it's easy for somebody else to come in and say, yeah, it's not a big deal. Just add this, change this, but that affects the budget. You've got to be on top of that. Don't let your contractors drink on the job on your property.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. You've got to have contingencies for every little detail in your work, in your contract. I liked what you said about having liquidated damages if they finish late. So penalties if they finish the job late, and maybe even rewards if they finish early. I've negotiated that with contractors before, where I said, listen, we're going to do, if you can't finish by this time, there's a penalty involved. And then they would say, well, if I finish it early, can we have a reward? And I said, yeah, it's only fair. But having that in writing is so important. And you also said something in there, don't pay contractors until they get all the work done. That sounds simple, but so many people forget that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
You also talked about you had a realtor help you, and you said negotiate with the realtors for what happens if you bring the buyer. If you bring the buyer, and that some of you may think, oh, you can't negotiate that. But yeah, you can. If you bring the buyer, you can negotiate with that agent what they actually will get. Cool.
Yeah, cool.
Always better to make a quick nickel than a slow dime.
That's right.
Maybe not always for not everybody, because that's what do they call that? Some kind of blanket statement. But I like that rule. It'll keep you out of a lot of trouble. Be willing to let go of some of your deals, especially when the seller is money hungry.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it goes with your gut feeling. And if you have and people, like I said, they forget that, you're looking for motivated sellers. Okay, great. You've got one. But I mean, is it really motivated to what's the deciding factor? Is it because of the money that they're going to receive, or is it because they're getting rid of, I don't know, some emotional thing, but just when you get a seller that's money hungry, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's this desperation to get that money, and it's just, oh God, it's not good.
Yeah. Good. All right, Esther, any other things that you would want to say, kind of wrapping this up, what would be some of your biggest lessons learned from this? What would you tell people who are getting into real estate investing, into wholesaling?
Well, just always have a plan. I mean, anytime you're getting into any business venture, you need to have a plan. You need to have goals and keep reanalyzing, as time passes by. Like, when I've done coaching with Gavin, with your partner and yourself, keep looking at what you've done, evaluate it, and adjust if you need to. But definitely have a goal and a plan of where you want to go, because if not, you're just letting life lead you wherever.
That's really good. Always have a plan, have goals. Kind of starts, would you say, having that plan, consequence of that is having a marketing plan, which drives it back to that first thing we were talking about. Have a marketing plan. So, if your goal is to make 20 grand a month in wholesaling, how much marketing you need to do every single day to get it done for you in spite of you, so that it just gets done.
Correct.
Yeah.
I totally agree. If you don't have that, you're shit. You have nothing. So, yeah.
Well, good, Esther. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Joe.
What market are you in, Esther? Tell everybody where you're at.
I'm in El Paso, Texas.
El Paso, Texas.
Yeah. And I always have this shirt. When I met with Gavin in March, I don't know if you can see it. I always have this shirt that says Ester Buys Houses, my website, and my phone number. And in the back of it, you always see, I don't know if you can see it.
Ester Buys Houses, any condition, phone number. Yeah.
Yeah. I always have this on. And so, yeah, that's my market, El Paso, Texas. And I always get leads. And when I'm walking, doing grocery shopping, even taking gas or whatever, I forget that I even have it on. It's just a shirt to me.
Nice.
And And so you can meet me, you can see me on Facebook or YouTube, Ester Buys Houses without the H.
Okay. So
Yeah.
go to Facebook or YouTube, Ester Buys Houses. And cool. People may have a deal in El Paso or in the surrounding areas, and you want to partner with Ester on it. Or you might have a lead. This is a great way to, I tell this to beginners all the time. Find somebody like Ester who's already doing deals in your market, who's doing what you want to do. And don't just contact her and say, hey, can I pick your brain? Can I take you out to lunch? Can I take you to breakfast? Can I have coffee and just pick your brain and ask you a few questions? Don't ever do that. That's the stupidest, dumbest thing ever, right? If you're listening to this and you're in El Paso, or you're somewhere else and you know of an Ester in your city, go approach them and say, hey, Ester, how can I help you grow your business? How can I help you make more money? What kind of deals are you looking for? Can I go out and find these deals for you? That is going to be the best way to get Ester to learn from people like Ester on how to do deals. What's going on in the market? What are the good title companies? Ester talked about she has a good relationship with the title company. Do you think if somebody just calls you, Ester, and says, hey, what's your title company? You don't know who they are you going to tell them? Maybe you will because you're nice, but
you won't.
Wouldn't you rather help somebody who puts in some kind of effort to go find you some leads, find you some deals, and maybe even says, Ester, hey, you've got a bunch of old leads. Could you give them to me and I'll call them for you? I'll just cold call your old leads and we'll split the deal or something like that. Wouldn't you be more open or receptive to help somebody like that?
Of course. Absolutely. Nice. Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, Ester, this has been really good.
Thank you, Joe.
I appreciate it. Oh yeah, someone here says, Millie, I agree. Offer a JV. Nice.
Yeah, Millie.
Cool. So guys, check out Ester Buys Houses at Facebook or YouTube, or go to EsterBuysHouses.com. And you spell your name E-S-T-E-R. There's no H.
Right.
E-S-T-E-R. Cool. Ester, sure appreciate it. And it would be remiss for me to say, if you want to work with me and Gavin is one of the best real estate coaches in the business. I've been working with Gavin for 5 years now. We coach our clients closely together. If you want more information, though, go to coachjoe.net. That's an old website, but it still forwards to the new one. I think we have the new one is REI Network. Here he goes. This is maybe a better one. REINetwork.com/coaching to get some more information and check out what we did to help Ester. So, Ester, thanks again for being on the show. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you again. Take care.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.